Hey up everybody, welcome back to the I'll Cycling YouTube channel, where today I'm going to be taking you through the final monument of the year. It's Il Lomabardia. This is the last Category 1 race of the Super Classico series. Of course, we've got Paris Tours on Sunday, so we'll be back for that one as well, so stay tuned for that. Make sure to come back to the channel and watch that one as well. But in terms of Il Lomabardia, when it comes to the profile, there's a little bit cut off the end here, but as you can tell, it's a very hilly race, if you didn't know, and it's also a bit hillier this year, arguably, than previous years, which makes it a little bit more different, especially when you do look at it. There's lots of multiple climbs here. It's going to favour the pure climbers rather than the punchers, and therefore, in my eyes, I'm not too sure about Julian Alaphilippe for this race. We saw at Milan Torino earlier this week, he wasn't quite the same as he usually is. For me, I think that Joao Almeida and Evenepoel are probably the better options for your team. I think that Alaphilippe is a bit risky for 32 points, and for me, I think the climbs will be a bit too hard for him, and he'll probably end up working for the other two. I'd honestly say that Fausto Masnada is a better pick than Julian Alaphilippe at the moment. All the other riders underneath him, who are kind of like above 20 points, are all relatively good. I think that Remco Evenepoel, Pogacar, Roglic, you're going to see a lot of these guys. Roglic, I think especially, is somebody who has to go on your team. Pogacar and Evenepoel is a bit of a debate. You could go with all three, but you couldn't go with all three Almeida and then 2 4-pointers. That doesn't fit onto the budget. So you do have to make a sacrifice here somewhere, which is kind of tricky to kind of figure out, I guess. But for me, I think that Roglic definitely is a certainty to go on your team. Roglic, Evenepoel and Pogacar. For me, I think that Evenepoel kind of edges it for me. He seems to be a bit kind of more dangerous at the moment. Pogacar seems not quite firing on all cylinders, and it's going to require a bit of perfect timing in terms of building up his form to do well in this race. Although he has won Liège-Bastogne-Liège, whereas Evenepoel has not won a major kind of one-day race of that kind of length, so you can take that into consideration as well. You could argue it either way. Hershey I wouldn't pick Pinot either. Woods would be a pretty decent one, but he did get dropped at Il Lomabardia, and you could go with Adam Yates instead, who's 2 points less, who does look in better shape for me. So I think that I'd rather go perhaps a bit lower than Woods and go with Yates. Valverde was like basically on the same level as Woods as well, and he's got a very similar kind of fast finish as Woods does. Formolo I probably won't pick. You're basically banking on him, winning from like a move where everybody's looking at each other and he gets away because Pogacar's there and he kind of anchors all the moves. That's not a very likely scenario to happen. It's probably better to go safe and go with Adam Yates. I won't pick Simon Yates. Bardet is kind of, he can sometimes pull it out of the bag, can Bardet, but I'm not overly certain about that. I'm going with, it's a Category 1 race. You need to be like guaranteed kind of points here. A lot of the 20 points I'm not a massive fan of. Barguil, Benoit, Kuznetsov. It's too hard for Kuznetsov. Dan Martin, it's going to be his last race. Maybe we'll see something special there. It's too hard for Mohoric and Moscon. Nibali looked good at the Tour of Sicily, but like that didn't really have very good competition. Diego Ulissi is probably the best 20-pointer in my opinion. So I'd probably say that he's the one that I'd recommend you going with. 18 pointers again, not a massive fan of any of them. I know that Moll was here, who's a previous winner, but I just don't see him doing much. 16 pointers, it's quite a lot of them. Baggioli would be a tempting one, but I just think that De Koenig have so many guys already that he has to fall into some kind of domestique role. Gaudu would probably be the safest one, just because he seems better than Pinot at the moment and he looked good at Milan Torino. Ben Hermans, Patrick Conrad, both strong options as well. Hermans we've seen do pretty well recently. I think he came 11th at the Milan Torino the other day. Conrad we haven't really seen much of recently since the Grand Prix de Wallonie. Lutsenko probably not. Iran kind of can pull it out of the bag here, but I just haven't seen enough to warrant that. Higuita did good the other day at Treviso-Valenciennes in like a reduced sprint. I think that he's definitely quite a good option for like a top 10, but I don't think he'll be winning. Masnada could he's more likely to win than save Formolo, just because of how many guys De Koenig will have in the move, kind of with like 50-60k to go. Masnada could certainly be somebody who could sneak off the front and win. That's a bit kind of ambitious, I know, but I'm just throwing out all possibilities here. The safest and best option that I would recommend alongside Primož Roglic is to put Joao Almeida on your team. 12 points, pretty fast in a sprint, from like climbers, and he's just absolutely has to go on your team alongside Primož Roglic. Those are the only two that I am going to absolutely say you need to put on your team. Demarchi, of course, won to Levi Varcien the other day, but is this going to be too hard for him? They also have Martin and Woods here, and Hermans. Somebody's going to have to be working. It would make sense that it's probably Demarchi. Lorenzo Rota, I've been really impressed with this year, but I want to say that I wouldn't recommend him for this one, just because he's been really good at puncher kind of races with kind of climbs less than 5 minutes, and these are just going to be really quite much longer climbs. So I wouldn't recommend Lorenzo Rota. 10 pointers I'm not a massive fan of either, to be honest with you. If I had to pick one, maybe Nick Schultz might be the best one that I could like say to you. 8 pointers, again, same thing. I don't really like many of them either. 6 pointers, I do have some good ones that I like the look of. I've got 5 that I really like and 2 that I kind of like. So I really like Champoussin, Matteo Fabro, Aurélien Padet-Pentler, Michael Storer and Ryan Tarame, just because a lot of them have done well recently, basically based off of Milan Torino. We saw Champoussin doing okay, but he finished like 20th, but I think he was stuck behind that move which went up the road, so he could have finished a bit higher. Fabro finished 13th, Storer finished 15th or 16th, but he was in that move, and Tarame also finished inside the top 15. I think that these are the best 6 pointers. If there are 2 other ones, which would be Vingegaard and Fortunato, the guy who won the stage up for Montezoncalan, but those 2 just haven't quite shown quite the form that the other ones quite have just in the recent few days. So those are the 5 that I'd really be recommending. They can be found. There's Champoussin. Nielsen Paulus I've been tempted by, but he just hasn't quite looked the same recently since like San Sebastian and stuff like that. Michael Storer's there, Ryan Talame's there. You can find the other ones, you know where they are. Vingegaard's there, he's at the bottom. But in terms of 4 pointers, I get that some of you also probably be needing some of these, so I think that Aliotti is a very good one for Bora, considering that they don't seem to have a out-and-out leader in their team. I think that Aliotti could have a possibility and a chance to go kind of into the top 20 in this race. He's probably got the best chance. Eric Vetter is a young Hungarian under 23 rider for Aolo Kometa. He's very talented and could, post a top 20. I'm not saying it's very likely. I think that Aliotti is probably the better option of the 2, but I'm just giving you just another shout there. And of course, another one will be Stephen Williams, the guy who won the GC of the Croatia race recently. Bahrain, of course, again, not really coming with a true leader to this race, so he could definitely be an option that you would go with. This is the team that I've currently got at the moment. You could swap some things out. You could, instead of Yates, go with a 24-pointer like Woods, and then put in a 4-pointer like I did before, like probably Stephen Williams. You could go something like that, and of course you could swap out Remco and Pogacar and stuff like that, but I think the basics have to be, you have to pick Roglic and Almeida. Those are my 2 top tips for this race, and I think that's about it really. Let me know who you're going to pick in the comments down below. Of course, Lombardia tomorrow, and then we'll have Paris Tours the day after, so I'll try to get a video out for that tomorrow at some point when the start lists are all updated. All that's left to say is to keep safe. Thanks for watching, and I'll speak to you for the Paris Tours video. Salut!